And we are live in the pre-show. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Can anybody hear us? Got Chris Greiner with us.
A little bit of a delay on that.
Okay. All right. We'll give that a try. And Chris, we are now live in the pre-show. And we've got looks like about a dozen folks or so in the chat room, and some folks are watching us on YouTube directly. Some people watching on Facebook. We'll go ahead and get the Twitter stream going. If you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube directly or Twitter or Periscope, we invite you to come on over to easternshorebroadcasting.com, because that way you can get it on the chat. Oh yeah, Chris, that made all the difference in the world. That's good. That's good. And let's remember headroom here too.
You need a little less, or you want a little more?
Yeah, I want you almost up to the top of the screen. More torso, less dead space up here. Yep. Okay. Timothy McGowan says 456, so I guess he's heard us. Kiwi Chris says, got you and Chris, it looks like and hear you. Very good. Okay, so we got Merle's here, Chris is here, Indrit's here, Dave, Timothy, Mark. Welcome, Mark. Jerry, Ken, Merle, Tommy, Prashana. Chris, Prashana lives in Nepal, and he gets up in the middle of the night about 2:30 to watch this show. I mean, that's dedication.
Impressive.
Yes, indeed. Guest 666 is here. There's a biblical reference, I guess. Chris Watts, Jason Perry, Curtis McDonald, and Giles at Step Back in Time TV. So my guess is a few more folks will fold in. There's a show right before this one in Pennsylvania done by the folks at PTZ Optics. So they may be wrapping up their show, and then those folks will kind of fall over here as time comes. But if you're watching go ahead.
Go ahead. I said not a bad choice to piggyback the two together.
Yeah,
everybody can take care of their Wednesday afternoons together.
I think they preempted me. Yeah, I may have to switch my time and come on before then. Oh, Tommy says their history. Okay, very good. Yeah, I think that's the folks that do the PTZ cameras at PTZ Optics, and they do a really good job of marketing. Okay, we've got looks like we've got about 3 minutes here. And guys, as you see us during the broadcast, if you have questions, of course, go ahead and post them in the chat. And then, of course, you may have to copy them and paste them in the chat again as we get towards the Q&A section. So just a reminder on that one. And let's see, Chris. It's one of those situations where we're all set to go and we've got time left over.
Well, we can talk about anything.
Yeah.
Even off that. So.
Okay.
Even talk. How much time we got? Oh, we got 3 minutes. So not a ton of time.
We've got a world of time.
We got some time.
And Martin's here. Martin's watching us from England. Martin and Dave and Merle and Giles and Tommy and Ken, and let's see who else. Did I miss anybody? I always miss somebody. We're on a show Monday called World of Live Streaming, and it was their 1-year anniversary. They've been going for a full year of doing a live streaming show every Monday afternoon, Eastern, Monday evening in Europe. And sometimes it originates from England, sometimes from Sweden, sometimes from the U.S. I mean, it's been a real fun kind of year-long experiment in how to do live streaming, or sometimes how not to do live streaming, as the case may be.
I think that's everybody's experience. I don't think if you haven't had the how not to do it experience, you're not.
Well, that's right. That's right. Oh, Ken says it must have been a different Ken. Oh, Ken, I must have been thinking the PTZ Optics show that you were on last Friday. He was on the studio show for PTZ Optics. They had 3 guys on there, and they were sharing about their studios. And I think then everybody watching the show got to vote, and one of them got a free camera or something like that. It was pretty cool. That was Ken.
Always nice to get free gear is also always nice.
And Ken won the camera. All right, very good. Ken had just purchased
a PT.
He got a PTZ camera. Yeah, in fact, he had just purchased two from me about, Ken, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so he ended up winning another one.
Not a bad deal.
That's a pretty good deal. Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's see who else has joined us. The numbers are creeping up a little bit. Daniel Wright is here. Looking down the list. Kenny's here. Welcome, Kenny. Kenny was on the show Monday. Oh, it was a 20x box camera. Gotcha. Okay, well, that'll do for a fixed shot. I'd love to hear your impressions of that shot, Ken. I mean, of that camera. I'm working on. I mean, this is kind of the general equivalent right here to that PTZ Optics box cam. This is a Marshall cam. Chris, are you familiar with these at all?
We use them a good amount, and they take a beating too. We have one of them that we purchased, and we sort of let rotate with our producers. And I think it's been hit by about 7 or 8 race cars.
Oh, wow.
Solid hits. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We have one of the lenses that is bent in all sorts of directions, bent the threads and everything else, pulled it out, put another one in there, and keeps on going.
That's
You'll
great.
see Tony Stevens commenting quite a bit around Streaming Idiots now that I made him aware of it, and he's the guy who's wrecked that camera repeatedly. They work pretty well. I love stuff that's BNC connected that's fairly cheap because it just takes away that extra complexity of doing a conversion.
Yep.
So that's what I like those a lot. The lipstick cams are very similar. The Marshall lipstick cams.
Right. Cool. All right. Well, let's get this show on the road, and we'll have some fun. And again, I want to give a welcome to all the folks that are watching us in pre-show. If you're watching us on YouTube directly or Facebook or Periscope or Twitter, we do invite you to come on over to easternshorebroadcasting.com because that's where the chat room is. And you can get in on the couple of dozen folks that are there right now and see... Let's see. Giles is saying, Tom, did you see the start of the show on Monday? No, Giles, I didn't. I have to go back and look at it. And guest 666 says, Chris, you could use a closer mic. So that's just one of those things. Do you want me to give you a
little more level on that? Or?
No. I think what they're saying is you're getting a lot of room noise, and the closer the mic can be to you, the less volume you have to put in, which means the less room noise you got. But that's just, 666, that's just what it is sometimes when you're dealing with a remote guest. All right, Daniel Wright has a quick question for you, Chris, before you get going. He said, in a Marshall camera, what lens would you use for a 60 to 80 foot range? Do you know off the top of your head?
If he sends me an email, I'll look back through the recommendations from Marshall. Those guys are actually pretty good if you get in contact with them on email for giving you suggestions on the settings. But I know I've gone through all of those questions at some point in time and passed them off. So I'm not exactly sure. I know that they have something like 15 to 20 lenses that are available for those cameras.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's just a matter of looking it up then. Very good.
Yeah. But they're varying focal ranges and all that stuff.
Right. All right. Very good. Okay, folks, we're going to get ready for the show here. And again, welcome you to come to easternshorebroadcasting.com where you can get on the chat room. So with no further ado, let's queue up. We're going to fade to play. Chris, we're going to mute you temporarily. And we are going to go to black, and then we'll be back. Hello and welcome. I'm Tom Sinclair, and this is Streaming Idiots. Yeah, that's right. You've come to the wrong place again. You're like, how do we keep showing up there every Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern? and that crazy guy is on there. No, 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 no. I'm delighted that you're here. I want to give a big shout out and a warm welcome to all the folks watching us on Facebook and Periscope and Twitter, YouTube directly. Of course, we'd love to have you come over to easternshorebroadcasting.com so that you can get in on the chat room, because we've got a bunch of crazies in the chat room today, including RJ and Merles and Jan and Marie. And Jan and Marie are actually a couple. In fact, Jan and Marie are the two that started the Streaming Idiots Facebook page right down here at the bottom, facebook.com/group/Streaming Idiots. So thank you to Jan and Marie. You know, actually, that group celebrated. We missed it, guys. We celebrated a 1-year anniversary on September 26th, I think. So that group has been going on for over a year of idiots that talk about live streaming practically 24/7. If you're not a member, you need to come join. Facebook.com/groups/Streaming Idiots. There are, believe it or not, there are 1,000 members. Jan was telling me when we first started, he said, you know, I hope one day maybe we can get up to 50 members. As it turned out, it's a great group. It's one of those groups where if you're kind of a newbie, you can ask a stupid question and you don't get pounded down. You get people that are gentle in answering that. So it's got a really great attitude about it. I really, really enjoy that group. Prashana said he had reminded me of that anniversary. So, you know, that's just an old guy's brain. I'm super psyched about my guest today, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But I'm also super psyched about, and can I bring this to the screen? Yeah, let's bring it to the screen and see what you have. Can anybody tell me what these are? No, of course you can't tell me what those are. You're like, well, are they black pearls or something like that? No, those are obsidian beads. And you say, what in the world, Tom? You've gone off your rocker again. No, 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 no. Obsidian beads. Obsidian. Obsidian is a jet black semi-precious metal, or semi-precious stone, rather, that is probably made up mostly of volcanic lava. And polished to a high gloss, and is really, really beautiful. It's tough. It symbolizes power because it comes from volcanoes, and that is the name of the new vMix reference system for 4K video. Yes, it's the Obsidian system. So if you go to vmix.com and check in their reference systems, you'll see that they have now posted the specs for the Obsidian reference system. It's based on an Intel i9 processor, a whole bunch of RAM, you know, a super duper video card, you know the buzz. We'll be adding those to our store at easternshorebroadcasting.com very soon. So if you're interested in 4K, we will be able to help you with 4K for sure. If you didn't catch it last night, Tuesday night was the vMix Fun Time live show, live from Australia in 4K. Get this, 4KP 60. Yes, it was pretty amazing. It was, I mean, you could count the hairs on Tim's beard. It was that crystal clear. It was amazing. Giles says obsidian means obscenely powerful. I like that. I got that. Okay, so anyway, go back and check on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and Google vMix, go to their page, look at their last show, and you'll really be amazed by the super quality. 4K is you know, we say 4K is coming, it's off in the distance, it's coming. Well, it's closer. It's closer, and more folks are adopting it as a way to future-proof themselves, as well as provide 4K video for those that, at least for those that can accept it in a stream. It's going to take about somewhere between 20 and 40 megabits per second to do a decent 4K 30 stream. And so you figure your viewers are going to have, you know, probably at least 50 meg down in order to watch. Did I say 30 to 50K? I meant meg. Sorry about that. Anyway, one of the things that gets a lot of talk when we talk about live streaming is the ability to monetize our stream. And for those of you that are doing this as a professional hobby, you know, kind of a nights and weekends gig, or for those of you that are doing it full time, or for those of you that are interested in going from, you know, kind of a hobby to more of a full-time gig, you'll want to pay a lot of attention to this show, because we're going to talk about one of the many ways to monetize. I mean, yes, you can monetize using the TV model with advertising. You can monetize with sponsors. You can monetize with contributors. But you can also monetize with pay-per-view. And my guest, Chris Greiner at Rivet.com, is going to be on in just a second to talk about pay-per-view. But let me give you some ideas about pay-per-view, and let's talk about the audience first, because Chris is going to talk a little bit about the services that his company offers in pay-per-view. But a pay-per-view audience is going to be a highly motivated audience to watch whatever the content is. This is not going to be a casual audience, somebody that's like flipping through the channels to see what's on. This is somebody that's willing to pay cash money to see what it is that you've got. So if you're thinking, oh, I want to take my high school football game and make it pay-per-view. I want to take my Tuesday afternoon talk show and make it pay-per-view. It might be difficult to do that, because unless the audience is highly motivated to watch. Now you'll say, oh, well, a football game, there are a lot of folks that'll be highly motivated to watch. Well, a lot of those folks will be physically present at the stadium if they're highly motivated. If they've got a child on the team or a kid playing in the band or something like that, they're going to be there. That's your most highly motivated group, is the parents in that situation. The second tier is going to be grandparents, aunts and uncles, and they may or may not be willing to pay to watch their niece play the flute, or watch their nephew play right guard. So as you're thinking about events, you try to think about events that are going to be unique, are going to have a highly motivated audience, and a lot of that is going to have to do with the content. If you are live streaming a concert, and we're not going to talk about copyrights right here, but if you're live streaming a concert and it's a group that is very popular, maybe you can do a live stream to their fans that are not physically able to be present. So you want to do a lot of analysis with who is my audience going to be, what's their motivation, what's their willingness to pay, and then you get into the technical details of how to do the paywall and all that kind of stuff. So having talked about that little portion of it, I want to welcome. I am so thrilled to have Chris on the show today. Chris, let me bring you into the show here, and turn your mic on. Chris, welcome. Glad to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Chris is one of these guys whose names came up in a discussion of pay-per-view on the Streaming Idiots Facebook group. And somebody said, oh, yeah, you need to talk to my buddy Chris. He knows all about pay-per-view. And he mentioned his website, which is rivet.com, RIIVET.com. And so I went there and I said, oh, wow, this is cool. And so I sent Chris a note, and he responded, and he said, yeah, I'm an idiot. I'll come on your show. So, Chris, we're so glad to have you here. But let me start at the beginning. Where in the world, what day was it in your life where you suddenly discovered live streaming was a thing?
I don't know exactly when, just from the strict live streaming, when I watched my first video. But it was back in 2009. Okay. I'm a tech guy, programmer, and my co-founder as well. We're both tech guys. There was an opportunity that we sort of played with, and that was broadcasting a race, a motorsports race, dirt track race, in the off season. It's in Tampa, Florida, at East Bay Raceway Park. An event with a lot of prestige, an event that a lot of people followed. And I had done some other tech work, and this was managing live timing and scoring and publishing that online, and we saw a good reception from that. And we thought, if we can convert 10% of these people, it could be worth our time.
Right.
So got a few guys together, spent way too much money financing some equipment, got a TriCaster, got some, I think they were Panasonic HPX 170s, and went down there and gave it a shot. At that time, there wasn't a lot available for paywall features and sort of all of those options. So we used TotoCast, who I believe is still out there. TotoCast is doing their thing. But along the way, we ultimately decided we wanted to have some more options. And that's where We fumbled through having some WordPress sites, which is sometimes a viable solution, but we ultimately came to creating our own platform. And then as we created our own platform, we decided to, being software engineers, that we would create as more of a software as a service, so that other people that were in the same boat as us could make that happen. And I don't come from a video production background. I come from a tech background. So I'm more of a database guy, engineer-minded guy. Sometimes I'll agree that I have engineer's disease. So I can get a little too technical sometimes versus just taking care of stuff. But
right.
As you said before, I think in the pre-show, we've all had those streaming failures, and that will quickly change you from being so concerned with the details and just getting things done in a way that people will appreciate it.
Yep. Cool. So the first pay-per-view gig you did you make money?
We did, but that's because we were lucky. That wasn't because we knew what we were doing. You brought back, or you in the intro, you discussed, some analysis and some understanding of the market, and it really does take some experimentation. I usually lead that pretty quick when I do any of my inquiry discussions with folks on the phone. Is that you're really running an experiment. You're going to find out whether the market really cares about this content. And you're just trying to run a good experiment initially as cheaply as you can to get some information. Again, we were lucky. We made money. That was actually, it turned out to be like a 5-figure pay-per-view. It did pretty well. But we spent a lot of money too, which was very unnecessary at the time. We just didn't know it. And that's what you learn. You learn to sort of cater the caliber of production necessary for the market size and the expectation of sales that you're going to get. And one of the other things that's coming along is, we talk a lot about pay-per-view, and it always sounds like it's strictly one price for a single broadcast. Subscription options are now, with Netflix and the popularity of Netflix being so high, people are very comfortable with that model. And they tend to stay along, and sometimes your sales will be better than if you just done a single pay-per-view. Trick there is that you have to string along continuous content and being able to package that content at least on a monthly basis. Your other options are to string together, like let's say it was a football season, you'd have to do a season package price. And again, it really depends on the market. You have to do some experimentation there.
Gotcha. Cool. So your very first gig, you made money, and you made some mistakes, and you learned from those mistakes. What was the biggest takeaway from that first gig?
We got pretty lucky. Everything was probably in line. We probably spent too much money on people. I think that for that scale, I think we had something like 10 to 15 people, which sometimes people can think, oh, that's not that much, But for a gig that lasted, I think it was a couple weeks, there's a good number of broadcasts strung together, which made it another opportunity to bring in more revenue. But we had some pretty expensive folks in there that we were paying. We probably had 2 or 3 cameramen in there that we maybe overpaid for. It just was expensive. So we brought in revenue. We did a little better than breaking even. And then the next thing is, well, we have all this equipment. Now what do we do?
Right.
It was one broadcast, and I think it was like a $35,000 in equipment lease to make a payment on. And now you got to pay for that. So what do you do next? And at that time, people weren't as comfortable with streaming. So you're dealing with a completely different market 7 years ago, 8 years ago, where folks didn't understand how to watch video. And everything at that point in time was all flash media. So, and you can also throw on top of that everybody's internet was worse. You're really dealing with a lot of tough expectations from the customer who's experiencing streaming in many cases for the first time.
Right.
So that, if I had to say, like, the biggest mistake is not that preparation. To answer that question, preparation for serving the customers. It's quite a bit different when people are paying than they're watching something free on Facebook. You have to deliver based on their expectations. It's money they earned. So you have to deliver.
Cool. So tell me when Rivet kind of bubbled up to the surface from this whole thing.
So late 2015, we had been using WordPress with some membership plugins, which I know a number of people still do, and they function pretty well. And we were just noticing that we were lacking some features. We were also having some issues with our streams being stolen, in a number of cases. People were getting smarter with their browsers. People were starting to post things and realize that you could grab some of the embed information regarding the stream and send it off and put it into VLC and basically watch whatever you want. So we had that. We wanted better paywall features. We wanted it to be easier for the viewers to purchase. And so that's when we started the development of the platform to create something that was more conducive, for the process to be streamlined, not only for the producers, but for the viewers, and just to sort of take away as many headaches as we could, because some of these are just simple headaches that you don't experience until they happen. Imagine if you have a pay-per-view, especially a lot of motorsports, and it's canceled or there's a rain out. You need a way to or to refund all of these folks money, and it needs to be efficient. And doing that by hand, one by one, is not that fun. I mean, you're going to spend a good amount of time, and then the next day you've got to wake up and do another broadcast and be prepared for all that to execute. And that stuff adds up. And it's especially harmful if your customers feel like they're not valued, because if you don't respond quickly on something like that, it undercuts your potential later on for them to come back and buy again. And you have to take care of the customer. There's no way around that with pay-per-view or subscription. If they don't feel taken care of, they're gone and they won't come back. And they're difficult to acquire. It's easier now. You have tools like Facebook Live and other social media methods for reaching the customer and getting them on board, but it's still tough. If they have an issue and they feel like you didn't take care of them, they will not come back.
And so you guys said, we're smart. We're smarter than this. we shouldn't be doing all this by hand. Therefore, there's got to be an opportunity to take some of this stuff that we use every day, these PCs, and make them work for us. So you just sat down and you wrote Rivet?
Yeah, myself and my co-founder, Romero Rodriguez, he's a computer science guy. He's the nerdiest of the nerds between the two of us. Smart guy, Cornell computer science graduate, master's program there. So we worked together consulting for a good amount of time, doing some software development. And so we decided we would put it together and start a platform. And so that's how that all got engaged. And we've been working together doing that for a good amount of time. So we've always been comfortable together developing systems. So it's something we've done before.
So, all right. So tell me what Rivet does. We've kind of dabbled around the edges. Now let's go straight for the heart of the matter.
So I think of us as a broadcasting platform, but at this point in time, we really act more like a business partner, because we see that most of these opportunities require a good amount more of the business effort than just the technology effort. We see how again, we're in the same position as most of the people that are interested in doing this, that are doing it as a hobby, and would like to maybe expand to see if they could add some additional income, or see if they can create something that is their sole source of income. So we try to take away as many of the headaches away from the production as possible with delivering the video, and at the same time give that producer as much opportunity to be successful through marketing and branding and catering to the rights holders if needed, so that they can not only provide a broadcast but be successful as a business. Because really doing a pay-per-view isn't that hard. I mean, you can go and do this, and you can quote unquote do a pay-per-view, right? Like producing the video isn't that difficult, and putting that together. Making it work as a business opportunity is the hard part. That is the difficult part. Doing the marketing, reaching and finding out and running these experiments so you can actually see if there's something that's worth the effort without spending a ton of money. We have a good number of folks that are just single camera guys. We call them one man jams, out there doing stuff and being successful and finding, opportunities where sometimes they can do more. That's I guess I wasn't very succinct there, but
you were kind of beating around the bush, but that's okay. That's all right.
Right.
So let's peel back a layer and give me a for instance.
Yeah.
And let's say I come to you and I'm like, okay, Chris, I've got this opportunity. I'm right down here and at Gulf Shores, Alabama, on the Gulf of Mexico. And you know what we have down here? We have beach. And you know what people like to do when they come to the beach? They like to play volleyball. And so I want to start, or somebody else has already started, a beach volleyball league down here. And they have teams that come in from all over the U.S. to play volleyball once a week. And I want to pitch to these people that I can provide them with pay-per-view services and give them revenue, and of course feed myself at the same time. How can you help me put the package together like that? What parts of your service would work with that?
Well, and this is sort of the initial beginnings of pay-per-views don't really happen, in my mind, with the technology. They really happen with negotiations and discussions with whoever are the rights holders. You need to understand what their needs are and what their wants are. So much of that is about guidance. We have boilerplate legal documents that people can use, of course, for getting some of their rights in order. That's something that's very important in the long run. As soon as you find rights that are valuable, you better secure them, because other people will also find those rights valuable. But also some guidance with how to cater to and communicate to the rights holders. Most of these places, for example, if you have a volleyball league, their interest is going to be growing their volleyball league. So most of what we're doing can be dual purpose, and probably should be dual purpose, and we probably should put a lot more emphasis on the dual purpose nature of pay-per-view and subscription services to help your rights holders market, because most of these circumstances are they're going to be interested in having people show up at the facility, or in the case of a volleyball league, they're going to want more people to come and participate, whatever it may be, or maybe they need help getting some sponsorship recognition. So I'm going to start out with those discussions, finding out more about who they're trying to broadcast and what those rights holders want and what their needs are, and helping somebody start there, and giving them some perspective, especially to continue on your sort of storyline. Let's say that league has in mind that they've watched something on ESPN that has a 10 camera setup, and they're very interested in the whole process and would like a good amount of B-roll and player interviews and all of these additional features, but they don't have any money. So, you're going to run into those sort of cases where you're going to help this person who's trying to drum up business communicate to the rights holders something reasonable that they can deliver, and start that experiment and get everybody on the same page. So I will have conversations and sit in on calls to help everybody sort of get their ideas in line and see if there's an opportunity. That's really where the pay-per-view stuff starts. The tech then happens afterwards of how are we going to deliver this, how are we going to make it happen, how are we going to make customers happy, how are we going to market it.
Gotcha. All right. So let's get into the tech side a little bit. You guys are providing. Are you providing the CDN service or?
We do, but we
Okay.
are CDN agnostic.
Okay.
So if somebody comes to us and says, we like your service, we see that you can transcode to multi-bitrate streams, but we really like our CDN.
Okay.
Well, we will work with you to incorporate the CDN, and we will also give you the pluses and minuses that we evaluate with that CDN. Some
Sure.
CDNs you can lock down with various forms of tokening, some you cannot. So I'm going to tell you, well, here's what you're getting, and here's your concerns, and here's how it integrates with our process, and tell us if that's still the way you want to go. And again, we're software engineers. We'll make that happen if it's reasonable. And then we'll adjust our pricing based on you taking over that cost if that's what you wanted to do. And we're pretty open. We use for our base provider, and it's mostly related to cost. We use Scale Engine, who's out of Toronto. A little lesser known folks, but they're a Wowza based CDN, as a good number of CDNs are, and they operate I think with 5 or 6 various locations of their own hardware throughout the country, well, throughout North America, but I think it's just U.S. and Canada. They might have some locations in Europe as well. I know that they visit and go to some of those conferences to have those discussions.
Gotcha. And so whether it's Stream Engine with you or whoever I choose on my end, and I'm kind of working backwards a little bit now, you're going to have a paywall and all that goes along with that. That's going to allow my customers to come in and make a purchase. So they're going to use a credit card, PayPal. Tell me a little bit about that setup.
Everything is credit card based right now. We're like many startups. We utilize Stripe as our back-end credit card processor. Easy API for us to manage all the process. I spoke a little bit about processing refunds and managing all of that, the money processing. They make that easy for software engineers to manage. Right now, just credit card. There is some ability to, they have all the way to Bitcoin now, I think, that you can process through Stripe, and as well ACH. But the problem there is you're running into delays in payment. It would be fine for a subscription service that you're processing monthly, but if you're going to process an ACH for a pay-per-view immediately that people are going to watch, you're going to have a delay problem with, they can only watch if they bought yesterday and the payment processed. So we don't generally cater to that. I can go down that path of where life gets interesting with cryptocurrency, but that's a whole entirely different discussion.
But that's just with Bitcoin. I mean, if I come to an event today with my credit card and that event starts in 10 minutes, I can still sign in
Yes,
and
you can watch it
today.
right then.
Yep.
You will sign in. You will process your credit card. We try to make that as few as click as possible for the viewer. We give a number of paywall options. So if somebody wants to price out an HD stream versus an SD stream versus something in between, we allow that for some upselling ability
Cool.
if there's that need. We have a good number of rural viewers. So in many cases, they're not going to be able to watch an HD broadcast. We have a good number of folks that are watching our version of standard definition, which we run at, I think it's 768 by 432 as our general transcode. It's one of those nice 16 by 16 block sizes that transcodes nicely. So we have the majority of our folks probably watching that, but it's dripping the other direction. We're getting more HD folks that are watching as their bandwidth comes up, and they can actually view a full broadcast in HD.
Well, let's say in my beach volleyball pay-per-view that I've got some people that, let's say they live in Tallahassee, Alabama, and they want to watch, but but they don't want to pull the trigger until they see if it's a really good broadcast. Do we have a way of kind of leaving the paywall open for a few minutes and then closing the wall and then forcing them to pay in order to watch more? Kind of like a peep show, I guess.
We currently don't have something like that implemented. I know that TotoCast, when we originally started, had something like that. Like you could get some amount of time to watch that. We tend to more push where we're multicasting and helping people multicast to Facebook or to YouTube or to Periscope, so that we pull in their stream and with some timing assistance. Again, we're full service, so we'll watch and work with them to push that to a variety of Facebook pages. So that's the method that we're doing it right now. But if somebody really demanded that, it wouldn't be all that difficult. What I would be concerned about is whether or not that stream is locked down and that we can actually keep it locked down. I'd have to think through that process.
Right.
You could do it all with JavaScript and lock somebody out after a certain amount of time, but can they trick the system to then get it free? Sometimes you have to be concerned with that. Sometimes you don't.
You know, it amazes me that people would go to all this trouble to watch a pay-per-view stream for free. When they value their time, it would have been cheaper for them just to purchase the ticket. I don't get it.
It really depends on the people, and it depends on the market. To go all the way to some of the stuff that drives us crazy. With the advent of Facebook Live in the last year and a half now, we will have people literally set up a phone camera in front of their television that is broadcasting our broadcast and push it to their Facebook page. That's a little bit separate. They paid for it, but now they're wanting some social media popularity. And at least in that case, Facebook will allow us to pull those down because it's our broadcast. I mean, they will pull those at least, but you have to find them. Right. It's a needle in a haystack problem. I mean, what I think they have 3 billion users. Usually, somebody that's a friend or associated will send us a link to say, "Hey, this guy is showing the broadcast. You might want to do something about it."
Yeah.
So,
folks, if you're just joining us, this is Chris Greiner with Rivet.com. We're talking about pay-per-view. And we're delighted to have you pop into our show. If you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter or Periscope or even YouTube directly, we do invite you to come on over to easternshorebroadcasting.com so you can get in on the chat room. We've got a couple of 3 dozen folks in there chatting away about women's beach volleyball, and they seem to have taken that off on a tangent. So anyway, we would welcome you to come to easternshorebroadcasting.com, click the Watch Live tab, and get in on the full broadcast. Because Chris and I are chatting, but there's another great group of folks back there that are asking questions, which we're going to get to in the post show. I promise you, because we have had a kind of a couple technical questions, and I've picked up on 1 or 2, but I've missed some of them. So, Chris, if somebody wants to find out more about what you guys are doing, how do they do that? They go to rivet.com, of course.
Yep.
Which is rivet.com. 2 I's.
Correct.
Kind of sounds like that mechanical device that holds things together, a rivet.
Right. And you're leading. You should be marketing for us. And that was our concept behind the name. Is that I think we had that discussion.
We did. Yes. That
we're holding together a number of features that are necessary for the process. And some of the little things I say little things, we have built-in features for email marketing that auto-manages the various people in the campaign list so that you can send out an email to folks. There's a number of features that we're not touching on that are not related to the process of live streaming or to the pay-per-view side. Because that stuff, the features are around some of like the paywall features of being able to offer people not only subscription, but also being able to pay directly and having that option. Some of these things are just very nuanced, so they're hidden in there. But that's the concept of Rivet. Rivet is a good number of features that we feel like are necessary to be successful, all tied together in one platform. And I guess that you could add in that we're also experts that you get in that aspect as well. I think that in 2018, just because of some of a lot of the questions, we will maybe have a more stripped down version that allows people to use it more as just a direct platform. Our difficulty is watching all of these broadcasts. I monitor, or Romero monitors, or one of our other folks that we have on our platform will monitor every broadcast that's happening,
Sure.
because we have people that need it,
Sure.
and that's where our expertise comes in to help them actually be successful.
Awesome.
I see you smiling. I'm thinking all of these are. I'm seeing all the chat feeds getting hot. I see that it's starting to pour in.
Yeah, they're realizing it's time to put the questions in there. They've heard enough. Now they need to hear about this particular slice that they're interested in. Well, let's transition into post show, and we'll go into the questions. If you're watching us live, hang out for a few minutes later while we stop the recording. If you're watching us after the fact, there are actually going to be two recordings of today's show available on YouTube. One will be just the 30+ minute show portion. The other will be the pre-show, the show, and then the after show. And so if you get the one and you want to see the questions in the post show, just click on the other one. They're on YouTube where everybody can get to them all the time, and they're free. You don't have to pay per view to see them. Yeah, that's right. Although we may need to talk about that, Chris. So everybody hang on for just a second. Chris, hang on for just a second. And we're going to transition to the show closing. Thank you so much for watching. I forgot my normal intro, so let me give you just a nugget of it right now. The whole idea with Streaming Idiots is that we're sponsored by EasternShoreBroadcasting.com, which is my company. And the idea is that this is a giant infomercial with a little bit of info and a whole lot. No, a lot of info and a little bit of commercial. And so the commercial part is we represent vMix and PTZ Optics and not Black Magic. Sorry, I wish we did represent Black Magic. Magewell and X Keys and Marshall cameras. If you need a product in that way and you need somebody that's really knowledgeable with those products, then come talk to us. We also design and build custom streaming PCs for any kind of streaming application. Right now we're talking with somebody who has a small TV. It's 12 feet by 23 feet. And he wants to display 4 different TVs on that and use vMix to do it. It's like piece of cake. We got you covered. He says, oh, by the way, there are 2 of them, and it's going to be immersed in a swimming pool. I was like, okay, we'll work out those details. But if you've got an unusual need or a typical need in your church or your school with a talk show, we'd be happy to help you with that. So that's the commercial part of that, and we'll do a better job with that next week. Anyway. So until next week, what is next week's show? We don't know yet. You'll have to tune in to Twitter or Facebook, and also come join us on Facebook. We'd love to have you. Until then, we will catch you next time. And we are done with that. Okay, let's go back here. Very good. And let me turn Chris back on. And very good. Welcome. Thank you, Chris. Outstanding, man. I feel like we only just scratched the surface. It's just like we could have had a 4-hour conversation.
You really can, and it's also important for everybody out there who's still listening that we are not the only solution. I like to be an unbiased representative and help anybody with direction. Solving this problem is complex, and the main thing we try to convey to people is find a minimal way to run your experiment, and it's very much a software development concept too. It's called MVP. Minimal viable product. You want to find your minimal viable product, get it to the people, and find out if you can be successful with it. From there, you can build. Now, we may have some people who are out there and have all the ability and already have the cameras, have the systems, have the people in place, and they can just shoot for the moon. And that's great too. But more than anything else, don't overspend on running your experiment. Don't overextend yourself in trying to do something that you think will work. That will be very difficult. One of the things that you brought up was doing a concert. And I've yet to see a concert be successful because of some of the expectations around music. And this is just a personal hypothesis, and that is that music performances are performances. And so what's a little bit different about a performance than maybe something that's sporting related is that I can still get some version of that performance on Spotify or whatever. I probably already have the recording. It's a little bit different. So it doesn't have that same sort of urgency and desire to watch as a football game, as a race, because in those circumstances, once that event happens, it has happened, and you are no longer part of that experience, and it doesn't really necessarily convey to concerts. However, you still have to run the experiment. Maybe you have a very popular artist who is doing a show that's has its own unique elements. I could see that working, but you have to just test it. But I don't want to get too far away because I can't talk. I want to make sure we're answering everybody's questions that came through on the chat, and that they're getting enough information and they're happy. I think somebody had asked on there the total number of broadcasts that we have processing at a time. It really depends for us on the seasons that we're in. Right now, motorsports is fading out, and that still is our primary group of folks that we have. It's the market we started in, it's the market that knows us the most. But we'll have anywhere, I think the most we've had is like 10 to 15 broadcasts going simultaneously. We're not big right now. When I think about, relative to a live stream, we're not that scale as far as, growing, or as far as a business goes. But we'd like to grow, and we function as a startup. These are the steps that you take. You start, and then you start to build from there, and you manage your problems as they come along. And that's why I alluded to, I could see us changing in 2018 to where we had a little different service offering that wasn't a full service offering, because one of the most difficult time constraints that we have is monitoring the broadcast. But we still do it, and I don't think that goes away for us. We just find a way for it to scale, because as difficult as it is to execute the pay-per-view for smaller teams, they generally need the help. Somebody needs that expertise, and they definitely need the customer service. We didn't even allude to that we have monitoring systems that monitor bandwidth for all of the viewers that are tied into the CDN. Again, this is us being tech guys, so I can pull up a viewer's log in graphical form, and I can see their errors. I can see the bandwidth they're experiencing. I can tell them, lately, to give you an example, for whatever reason, Chrome 51 is an unhappy version of Chrome, and it doesn't update automatically. So I have a good number of folks that I just see that automatically, and we've actually started to build a system to identify this and send those people emails when they buy to say, hey, we can see that you're using Chrome 51. It tends to do this weird thing where midway through the video, it'll half green screen the video, and it just happens, and there's no real explanation. Just upgrade your video. So we do a lot of that sort of stuff as well. But back to what the point was, I could see us, if we're going to grow as a business and cater to a larger market size, we will most definitely have to scale back and have a lower offering as well. That is very independent.
That's the feeling that I'm getting as we're talking, is that you guys really are a premium pay-per-view company. That is, you're top tier in terms of service. You're going to provide the very best of everything, and as a result, you're expecting that you're going to be working with folks that are not doing pay-per-view to 100 moms watching a soccer game. You're going to be doing pay-per-view to folks in the thousands or plus that are watching something else. I mean, going back to my volleyball model for a second, and let's say that my goal is to have 10,000 viewers on a weekend. So it's going to be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. And we're going to sell a package for the weekend, and then we'll sell packages for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the package will be, $29.95 for the weekend and $9.95 per day, or $14.95 per day, or something like that. And I want to send 10,000 of those. When all is said and done, you're cutting me a check for what percentage of the total thing? Because I'm assuming, obviously, you're collecting all the money. I'm not collecting it. Is it going into my account? Right. Or is it going into your account?
It will go
into the nuts.
It goes into our account.
Okay.
It goes into our account, and then so long as there are no major issues, and that would just be that there was an event that had to have some sort of either an event that was problematic, so that there was an actual technical problem, and we're going to get a lot of demand from the audience for refunds, or it was actually a rain out or a cancellation. As long as none of those things happen, we direct deposit 70% of the gross sales to your account on a weekly basis.
Okay.
Our 30% contains everything else. It contains the credit card processing. It contains the CDN. It contains everything. We keep it clean that way. And then when we get to these other details, if your rights holders in the contract that you signed, once their proceeds direct deposited, we will help you manage that as well. This comes back to that original question of how you get started. Don't underestimate how much people care about their money and when they get it. Because that's how you keep some, especially with pay-per-views, it's how you're going to maintain a good relationship with that rights holder that lasts year on year. It lets you build your business. Much of the people that we have on our platform continue building their business and grow because they maintain their rights to some of their original discoveries and continue that process and really cater to those people. So, short answer, you're going to get it that week, 70% direct deposited to your account, and we're going to just dump it in there, assuming that there's no major issues with the refund process. Then we're going to say, hey, we know that this is here.
Right.
If you need some cash to cover stuff, we'll make that happen. But let's think about what's a rational number for what we're going to have for.
I understand that.
To hold back, and we'll hold it back.
That makes perfect sense. You guys have been doing this long enough to have a feel for it. How many of your clients, your Tom Sinclairs, are paying somebody else for the rights to broadcast their event? How many clients have rights holders involved? Everyone.
Everybody. Every single one of our they're all paying somebody for those rights, and that's a separate aspect that we try to give direction on, because the expectation for payment is sort of determined by industry too. Some like to have a net payment. Some are just gross sales. We just try to get people to understand who else is in the market, how the market functions, and try to get a deal that's reasonable, that they can maintain. The toughest situations come in where a guy goes in, does a deal for off the total gross sales, and doesn't cover his expenses. We really try to keep guys away from having that happen.
Right.
And you brought up 100 soccer moms. We have events that are 20 to 30 subs. That's what people are watching. They're just doing it on a consistent basis. A lot of people that are broadcasting every weekend. if you can do it continuously, that the money can be okay. And usually what it is it ties into another larger event at some point during that year, and it helps them build that market and maintain the happiness of that market.
Sure.
But this also rolls into, we're not just live, we're also an on-demand subscription service in many cases.
Okay.
So we have a good number of folks that are doing a live broadcast, then they're publishing the VOD for replay, and that may or may not be available for a separate price, or in many cases, the sort of magic in most of our markets that seems to be working is that becomes a subscription service, a monthly subscription service that people pay for. So and then it all the way ties back to what I said about the rights holders in helping them market whatever they're doing. If it's a volleyball league, one of the groups that you missed out on is the volleyball players themselves. So if the volleyball players themselves would like to see them play, more often than not, they're going to maybe be a subscription service purchaser, because they're going to want to come in and watch those after the fact because they were there. And we have a good number of folks like that, because if you're at the event,
Really?
especially if you're thinking of motorsports, think about motorsports, especially all the crew members. The crew members are back at the car during this entire event, working on the car, doing their thing. They can't watch the entire event. They're missing that experience, but they were part of it, but they'd like to come back and see it at a later time. So then it sort of becomes part of the long tail of making your content more valuable, where you're going to have a good number of people that come back and watch subscriptions. And that's also very good for your rights holders, because they're maintaining some level of continuity for and a service as well for their people that are there competing. But the fans who can't make it, then they can be, they're able to come in and watch. Who knows, they could have a wedding, they could have something else. If they have a cheaper subscription service that keeps them tied in to that brand and to that entertainment, they're more likely to show up and actually attend events. You're really trying to stay in the habits of people, and all marketing tends to be about habits, right? We're trying to create habits that people tie into, and that's back to what you're doing for the rights holder. It all starts there. And if you make that rights holder happy and you have a good deal, you really don't want to let that go. You want to keep making them happy and keep providing, because you'll be their business partner for a good portion of what they're doing in terms of marketing.
How many of your clients are actually the rights holders themselves, percentage-wise?
We have a few out there. I want to say it's a lower number just because of organically how things have come together. Mm-hmm. We're going to, at least in our motorsports market, be pushing a little bit more of that. It's more of a lack of understanding. You can imagine if you're the person who owned the volleyball league, you have a number of different things considerations that you're trying to take care of.
Right.
If somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, we'll just take care of it for you," it's one more thing off your plate.
Right.
But if they understand the process of how they can manage it themselves, then you see that happening. And I could see them saying, "Okay, well, I can hire some folks that are local and they can take care of it." I don't really mind which way it goes. I just try to hope that guy who actually is doing the hardest work, the videographer, the producer, the guy who's really there, has some upside into the process, that he isn't just getting paid a low rate to get in there and do it. Those solutions tend to have a lesser than desirable effect on the production. I tend to like for the incentives to be aligned. If a guy's getting a percentage cut of the broadcast, he's more likely to do a good job of marketing. He's more likely to help you. When I say a guy, I'm thinking a guy or gal who is actually doing the production. I want them to have some skin in the game so that they're doing a better job, because this isn't, CBS Sports showing up at the Super Bowl, where people are getting paid a great amount of cash, and it's their gig and it's their profession. This is hard work for people, and many times we have some guys that do multi-camera broadcasts and announce by themselves. They do the whole thing, and they're mixing video. I mean, they can do it, but it's a lot of work, and mostly it's a passion play. But back to your question about the rights holders, I'd be happy bringing them in, but I would always suggest to the rights holders as well that you let these guys have some skin in the game, because it will give them a more incentive to do a good job with the production, because there's fewer people involved, so there's more options for things to go wrong. I mean, I'm thinking of all of the various headaches. You start paying that guy a set rate. What's his motivation for getting there early to make sure the internet network is taken care of? What's his motivation to make sure all of the camera settings are nicely configured? Yeah, all of that motivation sort of goes away.
Right. Right.
I also want to make sure we're still answering some of these questions, because we get a whole bunch of them going through here.
Yeah, there've been a few. Jan wants to know if you brought refreshments. I think we can ignore that one. Let's see. Somebody had asked, Jesse had asked a question a while back that somebody else wanted to know the answer to. Let me see if I can scroll back to it. Rion wanted to know Jesse's question. Jesse's question was, can you summarize your email and membership features?
Right now it's pretty basic. We work off of Amazon's emailing feature, but it's built into the platform. And if you have an account there, this getting into the details of our platform, all of our platform is white label capable. So you can build out your own domains. So for example, if it's, I don't remember which beach that you said, something Shores Beach, volleyball.com. They get Golf Shores volleyball.tv. They have their own domain, and they also get their own branding. We didn't even touch on some of our over-the-top platform delivery features, so we can deliver to Roku as well, so you get a Roku channel, all that sort of stuff. But if you're operating within that realm, you can set it up so that anybody who purchases on that domain automatically gets fed into a campaign list that's managed. Or you could separate that out. Imagine if there were multiple facilities versus just one beach that you're playing at by event. You can separate that out so that there's options for managing those lists as people come in and purchase again. It manages it. It also allows them to unsubscribe so that we're properly taking care of all the can spam laws and not getting people into any sort of issues there, making our best effort and best practices there. And then we have, right now it's a pretty new feature. We have a simple template for you to upload an image and send out an email that ties to your event, and then you send out that email, you schedule it, and it pushes out those emails on schedule, and you're off and running. But the main thing is that it's managed. It is managed within the platform. It's one of these things that we push because, again, as producers, people pay attention a lot to the video. They care. During the week, they're thinking about the new camera, or like you're bringing up with vMix, the new settings that are available, or the new feature packs that are available. And we try to get folks on board to thinking about making a little more money so you can actually buy those things, and that happens through marketing. And we, one of the other ideas with that is that we would allow for potentially your rights holders to use a similar service so that you can offer something to them, because it then lets you tie in that service for that rights holder, so that if maybe they want to use that same email service, it doesn't bother us. It could help them actually market the event. That's a little bit down the road so that we get it set up, but I don't see why not.
Yeah, a lot of what I've heard you... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
A lot of what...
For a second.
Okay, a lot of what I've heard you say, and I really like it, but it's foreign to me, has been, the idea of pay-per-view not as a standalone individual event, but as a reoccurring event, that lends itself to a subscription model, to developing a community of viewers that are interested in this subject, which gives you the opportunity to market other kinds of things to that folks. I really like the way you've taken it, because a lot of times when I think about pay-per-view, and I think when some of the Streaming Idiots community thinks about it too, a lot of times we're thinking about it like, oh, there's this event coming up. It's an auto race that happens at this track every year in November, and it doesn't happen, any other time. We want to do pay-per-view for that event, but I like the idea of kind of making it larger and more of a reoccurring kind of thing, which of course means reoccurring revenue, reoccurring work, and the whole, all of your marketing for one event is not just wasted if that event has passed. It continues to build and build. So I think you guys are really onto something. I really do.
Right, and it's discovering those opportunities that can be difficult, but they're out there. I mean, most everything that happens that I see, especially in sporting, is this way. It's a league. It's some other group that is putting on some sequence of events, and you can tie into it. It gets more difficult if you're going to be crossing over from one rights holder to another. But we allow that to be packaged, and we actually, it gets way, way deep into our financial tools. But if you do package them, we actually allow you to separate those out by ticket price, so that they can actually be assigned a certain proportion based on how your contracts are written. It all comes down to breaking up the money. These guys like their money usually, so you want to make them happy. If they're tying together 5 events across 5 different promoters or owners of rights, you want to make sure they're being taken care of.
Gotcha.
But all that coming back, I think this subscription model most likely wins out once we sort of understand and people can be happy with packaging. It just becomes tough if you don't have enough content. How do I charge somebody a monthly fee for content if I only have content once every 2 months? What do I do to fill in the gaps? Do I go back and do I acquire old content somehow so that I can fill in the gaps? All those are the sort of things, and that's going to all be what's the interesting problems that are going to be solved. It's here. We're really at the front end of everybody embracing over-the-top, video broadcasting. So now, to me, this is the most interesting time that we've had yet, because now the real problems are going to start getting solved. People are open to it. So now we're going to figure out what people really want to watch and how they're going to watch it. I mean, everybody's always wanted a la carte. So a la carte's here.
I wondered where that phone was. Now I know.
You found it.
I found it.
A la carte's here, and now we have an option for these markets to sort of drive what people get to watch, and it's a matter of the economics working out. It just depends.
Mm-hmm. And marketing is huge.
I just sort of, you cannot underestimate marketing in its process. If you just throw a pay-per-view up there and you announce it the day of, I can pretty much guarantee you that you're going to fail.
Yeah.
If it's just one Facebook post the day of, back to something I said earlier, you have to build yourself into the habits of people. So they need to know what's going to happen if they're planning for a week. Most of our stuff is weekend based. So if there's going to be something on Friday or Saturday, they need to know on Monday, because they're planning their week.
Right.
So they're going to plan out their week for what's going to happen, and then that's how you get into their mindset. And then if you continue marketing to them and let them know that this is happening every week, or what your schedule is, they will build you in to their life. And that's back to the marketing too. That's very helpful for the rights holders. I'm
Kenny had
a few different questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna go with Kenny, because then I'm gonna answer some of the other ones.
Okay, Kenny says, are there any inferred restrictions in the fine print on purchasing? For example, how many people can watch a pay-per-view broadcast, could you buy a pay-per-view ticket and show it to 50 people in a small theater and still be within the spirit of the purchase?
That's sort of up to what you want to try to execute. We have dealt with that circumstance a few times, but it's sort of your choice. You're going into the legal side of stuff. You could put it up there and you're going to make that claim, but do you want to be the UFC and have somebody report it, and then you're going to actually go through the process of saying, hey, we see that this is how the UFC does stuff. We see that the fire code says that you can hold this many folks, and based on the fire code, you owe us this, and you're going to pursue it. And considering that we're in the United States, at least most everybody here is in the States, I don't know how the laws work in other countries. It's state by state, so you're going to have to get a lawyer in that state and go through the whole process. So it's probably a pretty difficult hurdle to manage on the lower end.
I've got the solution.
But
I've got the solution. Kenny wants to show it in the theater at his school, and I understand. And what you're going to do to Kenny is you're going to say, Kenny, we're going to provide you a 4K stream for this large theater that you're going to do it, but you're going to have to pay $500 or $300 or $250 for that event as opposed to paying $29.95. And he
Right.
self-selects. You know, if 720 is the highest one, and for $29.95, and it's going to look like crap on a 25-foot screen, I bet he would go for the 4K. I'm thinking,
yeah,
it's
you're
cheaper
going
than a lawyer.
to have to manage it more creatively. You're not going to be able to manage it otherwise. We have a lot of folks that watch in bars and have home parties,
Sure.
where they have 10 people over. That's happened since the beginning of
Sure.
pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And I just don't see you being able to manage it very well unless you're the scale of a UFC or like a boxing production where they're very stiff and will get the lawyers involved and make an example out of somebody. What they do is they just decide that you're going to go and prosecute a few people and make an example, and then people are scared enough that they don't do it again. Then he asks, can you put it, I see that he also asked, can you just put a price for multiple users? You could. We have those pricing options, so you could just add it, and then you're just guessing whether or not people are going to actually abide by those standards. Just depends on how people are really going to be concerned with it. But I like your idea. I think it's more creative solutions always work. I wish we were all pushing 4K, but
and it's just a numbers game. You know, the number is it cheaper to hire a lawyer and sue everybody, or is it cheaper? Am I going to make more money if I just go for the people that are honest and give them the 4K option? I always favor assuming people are going to be honest, assuming they're going to do the right thing, and then giving them the option for what they really, really want anyway, which if they want to going to do it on a 20-foot screen, they want 8K. When that becomes available.
And your other option there is to, if you do something like that was brought up by Kenny and you or Jesse, where you said that you could put a price on that. If you can actually tie the user to an event and you know what their stream is and you've got all the token lockdowns, you could actually take their token away if they were doing it and you knew that they were doing it, and then they would have to come back and purchase again or do whatever. It just becomes a big exercise in chasing your tail, though. That's the problem. So be more creative. Go with the people that are going to be decent about it, and I think you just have to favor people being honest over not being honest for now. I don't know of any other great method. It just becomes, like I said, it becomes too expensive. The question I was going to answer, now I lost it. Oh, where can users watch Chromecast or Roku? I saw that. We The player that we use is, at this point in time, also agnostic, but using JW Player's version that has built-in Chromecast compatibility and Apple TV casting ability. And then the Roku channels are all private channels. One of the reasons we do that is so that, back to the money on the smaller end, if you have a non-private channel, the SDK agreement says that you have to use their billing process, and they take 20%. It's much like Apple apps and Google apps where they're taking 30%. The loophole to this is that you can still install stuff as a private channel by going through our website and installing it through your Roku account, and then the 20% doesn't get taken, and it's all tied into our Roku channel for that particular domain. There's a little bit of overhead, it's just minor. You have to provide us with the graphics for your Roku station, and then we put that together, and then we deploy it for the customer.
I can see so much value in what you guys are bringing to the table, Chris. It makes me want to go out and find a whole string of events that I can just do pay-per-view on, and then say, okay, Chris, take care of this, and I'm going to take care of the technical part of the production and do the marketing, and just watch the money come in. Just watch the money come in.
And really where we're seeing the successes is back to that subscription model and describing sort of what you're talking about right now. If you can chain together the content and you can give some folks that ability to watch live or on demand and tie it in. I really love the platforms. Roku, why we went there first is they're dominating right now the market share. So we went to the market share dominant platform. If we were to go to the next place, it'll be the Fire Stick, because they're the second in market share. And we'll just keep going down that path as we can implement it in a way that doesn't affect our producers and our broadcasters negatively. I didn't add in the billing process for Roku as well. Not only do they take 20%, there's a 45-day delay on processing it. And that just really puts people, they're catering to large market folks who don't care about a 45-day delay.
Right.
Our guys care about paying their cameramen. Our guys care about paying their rights holders quickly. So we have to think about those problems before we go and implement another feature that actually doesn't work to their benefit and creates more problems than it actually does a solution.
Gotcha. Interesting.
I see this that Kenny brought up, that asked do we do international? We've done Canada, but other than that, this would be it would be a step that we would have to take and probably have a long conversation and understanding the various pieces that would come into play with doing something internationally. Again, Scale Engine is our house CDN, but I can't underscore enough that we are CDN agnostic. Our main goal, because you can embed YouTube into our platform. You can embed Vimeo. We use Vimeo for some of our stuff. It's not hard to do a lot of this stuff. If somebody tomorrow said to me, well, we just want to use it for a VOD site that's free, I'd say, sure, we'll start the process, and it'll be a different model. We set this up to just talk about pay-per-view and subscription, but we also tie together the ability to do everything. We call them promo features, but everything could just be a tied together YouTube site. If you wanted to take all of these shows and put them in a YouTube channel right now, we could do that for you, and you could put the Eastern Shore Broadcasting label on there, and you're off and running. It couldn't have, if it's up through YouTube, it couldn't have a Roku channel because YouTube doesn't allow it. But if you put it on Vimeo, which we have our own hosted Vimeo account that we'll allow you to use, then you can tie it into Roku and you're done. And you're off and running. And you can use your Vimeo account, you can use our Vimeo account. We have a lot of flexibility built in to that back end portion of the CDN, because both Romero and I have a strong feeling that's going to be very commodity based and is very fluid. I don't know who's going to win that game, and that game is changing quickly. We had a meeting with the Wowza folks. There's a lot happening there. You've got a lot of new technology that's getting ready to come online with different protocols being used for delivering streams. all the way down into peer-to-peer CDNs. There's a lot of options on the table, and I didn't want to back us into some corner where we're saying this is the only CDN we're going to use, because you'd be backed in that corner, and then the services change tremendously. But Scale Engine does a good job for the price. That's mostly what it comes down to. They're very consistent, and this is a very small feature that becomes very important to a number of our producers. They can use the same stream, RTMP stream information repeatedly, which may seem like a small thing, but if these guys are on a tight time schedule and they don't want to redo their Teradek because they haven't networked it so that they can log in, that saves them time. So that becomes one of the features that's nice. They record for us and they transcode for us at a pretty good rate, and that keeps all of our clients happy and moving forward. Some of it's just subtle stuff, and then would not International open the floodgates for you in a good way? I don't know. I mean, we're willing to try anything. That's just back to the experiments. Now in a different way, we'll experiment with other markets as well. We've tried that with a variety of sporting groups. When I see an interesting market, that's really where I gain interest. When I have somebody talk to me about a market that I think, that market has this exact sort of dynamics that I think would work, and it's back to what you were talking about, Tom, is a high demand, a high desirability, because it's very timely, and the people that are within that group are very passionate. I'm very interested in that. At the same time, you sort of want that market to be comfortable paying, that the expectation is there. So to talk a little bit more about that, you will run into some markets that the expectation is already built that it's free. It will be very difficult to overcome that. Even within the motorsports markets, we have that. Motocross is a good example. I don't see you ever being able to do a good pay-per-view, even at the highest level, for motocross, because the expectation of the fans are just that it's going to be free. Even though they're motorsports fans, they just built in that expectation. So you have to go up against that as well. And then I could still be wrong if you run the experiment and find out different. But I would guess from our experiences, no, it wouldn't work. Answer some more questions that we overlooked. We've had so many. So he said, do you think it would make sense to combine several pay-per-view contents into one package? Chris Watts asked that. Now you talk about taking off peeling back the layers of the onion. Now we get into something even more deep into our platform. We have three concepts for the various, major elements of the platform. One is the broadcaster and what they do. So if I'm Tom Sinclair at Eastern Shore Broadcasting, I have my own production brand, and I want to operate under that branding in the platform. So you get a site, and that has all of your production in it. Then the separate branding comes out to be, you can have any other method for aggregating out these broadcasts. And so we have a term that we just call an aggregate. And most of those aggregates would be like your Gulf Shores volleyball.tv. So you're in the back end of our platform, and you're going to be able to tie a broadcast or a video to a number of different options, but you're going to select that Gulf Shores volleyball.tv in some cases. So that's there and available for you. And so you can manage all of your brands that way. And that's more to cater to the rights holder than anything else. The third thing that we have is this concept of a vertical. And that's because we came from motorsports that you'll see in my emails that I respond back to racefeedx.com. That is a grouping of all of the similar types of content. So if you look at racefeedx.com right now, that's actually 8 or 9 different broadcasters But we use that method through our own Facebook. We have the Race FeedX Facebook page. We push through social media when we're doing the look-ins for teasing and all that sort of stuff. We will push through that channel to help people market their content through what we call a vertical. And we also allow anybody else to start their own vertical. So this would be an opportunity. So let's say that you start out doing the volleyball, Tom, and you're successful. Some other guy calls you up and says, hey, I've got this other volleyball league. What do I do? Well, you say, well, hey, we could work together. I've already got beachvolleyball.tv started that you started separately, and we'll put it all in the same thing, and we'll cross-pollinate some of this content, and we'll work together in one place. Now, it gets a little bit weird when we start to talk about, well, what if I have a monthly membership to that vertical? You have to do some finance work on who gets what money.
Right.
But initially, you can still start a step. Yeah, it's numbers. But all of this came organically from where we started. We had these problems. We had these issues, and we developed a platform with the knowledge of those issues. So if somebody's out there, and I had somebody recently asking me about this with MMA and for fighting sports, like you can start your own, go for it, promote it, and start that brand, and it becomes yours. And if you need some help executing the business side of that, maybe you want to take a royalty for somebody being on that. Those ideas and concepts are all available, but it's not anything different than what we already see, right? I mean, if you think about the NBCs, the CBS, the ESPN, they're all really just a vertical, right? For a certain type of content in many cases that people are comfortable with. So we're giving the customer some comfort, and we're giving the product some better options for marketing that would let them get started. And then all of the other branding, if it's a Eastern Shore broadcast, well, that can be in the broadcast somewhere, and we have some ability for you to tie in some of your logos and all of that, or you just do it in the video, right? And you tie that in, and you tie in the other brands and their sponsors, and everybody gets jumbled together. And it gives we think it could give a better option for people to be successful. That's really the goal there. That's all built in. Some people use it, some people don't. It's just an option that's there. If you just want to start out tomorrow, you go out, buy a domain name, get an SSL, and we fire you up.
Right. It's fascinating.
And
I
you
love
just
it.
take the steps. And then it's just, for us, it's a matter of growing and keeping that fresh and staying up with the tech, because that's the constantly evolving problem. It's so many people asking about CDNs in the chat. I really want to take that off of everybody's table, but offer them every option that they want, because it's a big headache. Dealing with the CDN in the middle of an event can be a monstrous problem if you ever have an issue. And production will not be able to maintain the same quality of broadcast if they have to do that simultaneously.
Right.
And so if we can manage those, as many of the problems that you have as possible in an automated fashion to help everybody be successful, I think everybody has a win-win. And our job is just to try to make it cheaper and cheaper. That's sort of the mantra of being a software engineer, right? We're here to automate stuff and make it easier for everybody to operate. But we're not the only solution. We've done it other ways ourselves. I see a lot of people bring out the WordPress membership plugin solution, and it's a workable solution. You just take a hit on customer service in many cases, and you take a hit on theft if it can't be managed. And then you're just not going to be able to, at least in this time, you're not going to be able to manage distribution to some of the other over-the-top platforms. I don't know of any nice way to tie all of that together. How do you tie all of your users into Roku so that when they log into Roku and they purchased on the other portion of the platform, that they still have that all nicely tied together? that's a sort of problem you run into. But if you want to run your experiment, that's probably the cheapest way to run it. It's also just going to be the one that requires the most time and effort from you up front. It just depends on if you think you get a good experiment out of it. And there's other platforms. There's other sort of full service. I mean, people talk about Klein, who embeds live stream stuff. The biggest problem there is people can share logins. I could send out my login information to anybody in the world, and they can log in multiple times. So you run into those sort of simple things that we have struggled with, and we try to take care of those quickly. It's just funny how there hasn't been a lot of catering to those sort of, some of those what I think of as minor, right up front, immediate problems that I would think people would take care of, but they haven't done. Simultaneous logins. It seems like it's obvious to me that you want to take care of that right away, but they don't. But you also can embed live stream, and you're off and rolling, and they are a little more inexpensive than we are. So, and I think you can go around and you'll find there's probably a handful of these sort of options out there that are not all that different from us. And that's just me being the unbiased, not salesy enough engineer to say, hey, it's out there, look around, and we think we're a great offering, and we think we probably, if there's anything we do better than anybody else, it's the service that we offer and the consulting on the business side. I don't think anybody can really touch that from what we do. You said before that you didn't think you'd have any problem with me talking, and
No, I didn't.
and I delivered on that.
You
From
delivered
our
nicely. You delivered nicely. No, Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time out to come on today, and I can tell by the fact that the chat room is kind of just like frozen. They're not going away, but they're not asking questions. They're listening. They're mulling it over. My guess is that questions will be popping up later, and if somebody wanted to reach you directly, would it be as simple as going to chris@rivet.com?
Yeah, I'll just dump that in there right now.
Okay.
Send me an email directly, that's fine. It wants me to log in here.
Because I know Ken mentioned to me, was it in chat earlier, or maybe by email, or maybe it was on Facebook. I don't remember. Anyway, his response was, I sent Chris a note through the website, and I haven't heard anything back. And that was a couple of days ago.
That's
so you could be the victim of your own success.
Yeah, so last week was a busy week where we fleshed out a quick feature for somebody that we think could be pretty interesting. So I was pretty busy with that. Everybody has now been responded to. I did that today, and I also let everybody know that we'd be on the broadcast. We added a donation feature for some folks that were going to contribute to the actual prize pool for a demolition derby. So that we have a lot of folks that would say, I really would like to help out that driver. And for us, it's running a little experiment to understand how that works. And then I saw one more question. Jesse asked, multiple login can throw original login off. Is that something you've ever done? We do implement that. So we implement two methods for kicking people off of a broadcast. One is we just detect that somebody else is logged in. You could still bypass that if you don't lock down the stream. So then we do kick them off, and then additionally, we also lock the stream in any circumstance we can, if it's a live CDN that allows us to. It has to be implemented by the service. There's no way to do it live, so then we implement that.
Cool.
And then he said, I still have heard not back. Ken, okay, well, maybe I didn't write back. Ken, I thought I did. Ken, I will look in my emails.
That's right. All Ken wants is free stuff. That's he got the free PTZ camera. He's spoiled now. He's like the motocross folks. You'll never be able to do pay-per-view with Ken because he'll want it for free. Well, Chris,
yeah, I mean that's.
I'd love to have you back on the show at some point. My guess is that you guys will implement a new feature or have a spin on an old feature, something that's kind of newsworthy. I hope you'll think about me and come on back to share with this community because I know they'll be really, really interested. And I hope the folks that have responded here, RJ and Ken and Gene, as you guys have some experiences with Rivet, that you'll share those with the Facebook Streaming Idiots group, so we can kind of keep up with that. Because when you find folks that you work well with, assuming that it's not a competition kind of thing, you want to share that information so that other people can take advantage of that too, and so that when the more Chris thrives, the more that means he's going to be able to automate more and more and keep the prices lower, which means we're going to be able to do more and more kind of pay-per-view subscription type things. And I like putting the pay-per-view and the subscriptions together and locking those down so tightly. That's really helpful in my thinking. It's not a single event. Let's think about something that's long-term, because obviously there's going to be a greater opportunity for more revenue if it's a long-term reoccurring event. All good stuff. All good stuff, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, think paid content. Don't think just pay-per-view.
Paid content. Yep.
What are my avenues? Paid content's a better way to think about it.
Last question from Rion. He wants to know if there's any kind of minimum pay-per-view cost per user for a ticket. Can you have a ticket for a penny?
I generally try to keep. I'm going to change my cost to you in that case, because I'm going to get dinged on the credit card processing. I think we run it for a live. We run it around 10. It's just what is set. You could always talk to us if we understand the dynamics a little bit better. But you have to just keep in mind that our costs are based on processing that credit card fee of 2.9% plus 30 cents. So if you go to $5, that becomes a pretty large percentage of what we're making, depending on where the costs are. But it also depends on the type of content being viewed. I mean, if there's with a live broadcast, we are consistently monitoring, and we always have somebody there and answering customer service and working with you. So we're in constant communication with the broadcasters as well if needed. VOD doesn't have that same sort of concern. We will answer customer service questions, but the immediacy isn't there,
right?
And we don't have to sit there and monitor it. So those pricings are, I think, set at $5 right now. But again, we're open to ideas. We're not a big corporate entity that won't budge off of people having some ideas about how things would work and running an experiment to see if it does work.
Right.
But so 10 and 5 basically are our minimums right now for
Good
for
answer.
live versus on demand.
Good answer. Good answer. Chris, thank you, guys and gals in the viewing audience. Thank you so much for tuning in today. It really is an honor to see you come out, week after week after week and engage with the other folks here in this community. Some of you have said, I'm just lurking, and lurking is okay. Lurking is okay, but we'd love to have you engage with the community, share some thoughts. Nobody's going to beat you up if you're not right. Nobody's going to beat you up if you ask a stupid question. Well, if you ask a stupid question 5 times, somebody might beat you up, but they're not going to beat you up the first 4 times. So come on out of the woodwork and join the community. We'd love to have it. We also want you to go to Facebook and join the Streaming Idiots group, because this conversation that we're having right now is going to continue the rest of this week in the Streaming Idiots Facebook group. So you'll want to be a part of that for sure. Chris, what can I do for you?
I think you've done a great deal already. I mean, you've given me an opportunity to talk about our platform and what we do. I appreciate everybody's time and spending a little bit of your afternoon hearing about what we do. This is Romero always gets on me about being a better marketer and being less of an engineer. So you're making him, he's off screen, he's away, but I'm sure he's smiling as he's watching and saying, good, I'll do the programming, you need to do more marketing. That's supposed to be my role. So you gave me that opportunity, so I appreciate that.
Good, very good.
And I appreciate everybody checking in and hearing what we have to say.
All right. Well, Chris, if you can hang on just one other second. Folks, thanks so much for watching today. We're gonna cut to the closing part and let the stream kind of roll out for those of you that might have buffered a little bit, because we know when we turn it off, it turns you off right away, even if it's still content flowing down the pipe. So we'll see you next week, and thanks for watching.